to see you both tonight. Thanks for both coming out.
Good to see you.
And speaking of Pelosi, by the way, she's huddling with House Dems tomorrow to choose the impeachment managers as she prepares to send the articles to the Senate. The Ingraham angle was told to expect the articles to be transmitted on Wednesday, so if that's what happens from here. Joining us now is Alan Dershowitz, Harvard Law Professor Emeritus and author of Guilt by Accusation. Along with him is Greg Jarrett, Fox News legal analyst and author of Witch Hunt. Alan, what happens? Well, I just want to say it this way. The articles of impeachment arrive in the Senate. Couldn't and shouldn't, this goes back to my advice I'm going to give, and I'm going to throw it out to you. Couldn't Mitch McConnell dispose of this travesty right off the bat? I think this, even setting a precedent for these two articles of impeachment, abuse of process and obstruction for not going to court, abuse of process on these nebulous, flawed grounds, is ridiculous. Like, I would either dismiss it or decide it immediately. I wouldn't entertain this nonsense at all. Thoughts?
There's no question that these two articles of impeachment are unconstitutional. They do not satisfy the constitutionally required criteria for impeachment. President Trump's lawyers could make a motion to dismiss, or one of the senators could make a motion to dismiss and take a vote right away. Whether they decide to do that or not will be up, obviously, to the members of the Senate, maybe to the Chief Justice initially. But I have absolutely no doubt that the two articles of impeachment, abuse of power, which every president since Adams has been accused of by their political opponents, and obstruction of Congress, which is another way of saying the president exercised separation of powers and checks and balances in an entirely proper way, should never come to actual trial. It's like charging somebody with a non-crime and then the lawyer making a motion to dismiss, which would be granted.
Yeah, the more I was thinking about this, Greg, and I'm going to get into Romney in a second, but the more I was thinking about this tonight, getting ready for the show, I thought, we have all this important stuff bearing down on us, let alone a presidential election in November. And Mitch McConnell's going to sit up there and start entertain like motions and have this travesty play out. This thing has been held in the House for obvious reasons, a failed strategy, whatever. But this is a flawed, constitutionally infirm two articles of impeachment, and even entertaining this in a trial, to me, sets a terrible and dangerous precedent.
Well, I agree with you. It lends legitimacy to illegitimate articles of impeachment. The second one is another joke, obstruction of Congress for asserting a legal right to resist a subpoena. If Congress disagreed, their remedy is to go to federal court. It's always been that way. So that one should immediately be dismissed. There was a motion to dismiss in the Clinton impeachment trial. It failed because there were nearly a dozen felony offenses identified as abuse of power by the independent counsel, Ken Starr. Here, there are no felony offenses. There are no high crimes and misdemeanors. They talked ad nauseum about extortion and bribery, and in the end they realized there was no evidence for that, so they conjured this wonderfully amorphous term, abuse of power. And, I agree there ought to be, and there probably will be, a motion to dismiss, and it should be seriously considered and voted upon. 51
votes is what you need. You got to get Manchin, Joe Manchin, and a couple of them were middle-of-the-road
Doug Jones,
Republicans.
Alabama.
I'd go to Doug Jones and Manchin and said, this is ridiculous. We know this is ridiculous. This is terrible for the country. And Mitch McConnell's got it. I think there's too much messing around with this. I thought about this a lot tonight. Alan, Democrats lost their gambit to dictate the terms of impeachment, clearly. So now they're essentially just smearing the Senate.
Look, it hurts me as a liberal Democrat.
And it allows the president to basically dictate how the Senate is going to conduct its trial. If the Senate becomes a wholly owned subsidiary of the White House, then absolutely the Congress will no longer be an equal branch of government.
Yeah, so, Alan, that's basically what Bernie Sanders is saying, too. I mean, he's saying we should just ignore the Senate in some cases. This is what happens when you have a fraudulent impeachment proceeding at the outset. This is where it's gone.
Alexander Hamilton in Federalist 65 said the greatest danger is for impeachment to turn on how many votes one party could have against the other party. And that's exactly what happened. Look, it would be ideal if we had impeachments that were neutral, objective, bipartisan. That's what the framers had in mind. But this case doesn't rise to that level in any sense. And so it was partisan in the House. They created the rules of engagement, making it partisan, rushing to judgment, and then delaying judgment. And suddenly they expect the Senate to ignore partisan affiliations. In an ideal world, that would happen. But in the political world created by the House of Representatives, it's unlikely to happen.
Greg, here's what